everybody. Welcome to the Hidden Gems podcast. And this is a show where we like to take a streaming service and find the hidden gems on that service. So we love doing it. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Ryan is here.
Hey, Rachel, it's great to be back with you once again. By the time this goes live, it'll be on Friday. So we're in the middle of Holy Week. I guess is as good a place as any to plug that this coming Easter Sunday, you'll be on my channel talking about Joseph King of Dreams. So I want to say a thank you in advance for being on for that.
Yeah. I it was always fun to get to talk about any film, but especially an animated film. So yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah, so that'll be on my channel coming this Easter Sunday. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. So how are things going for you on the whole?
They're going pretty well overall. This week with Holy Week and being a part of my church choir is a bit hectic because we got Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and then Easter Vigil, and then Easter Sunday. So
Wow, that's a lot.
I don't have to be involved for all of that. I should say that now, but for the very least Easter Vigil and then Easter Sunday, I'm pretty much there for that. So I always say that being a part of a church choir, Christmas is your Super Bowl and Easter is your World Series. The World Series lasts longer, but the Super Bowl is a much bigger deal. So that's how I differentiate between the two.
Yeah. So are you a tenor or baritone?
I'm a bass. Or I'm
Bass.
actually, my director is convinced I'm a tenor because I can still hit some high notes, but I can hit more low notes than high. So I've tried to be like, I'm not a tenor anymore, Mr. Dan. Stop putting me with them.
Well, it's so hard to find good tenors. So that's probably why.
That is definitely true.
Yeah. Well, fun. That's fun. I haven't been in a choir in so long, but it's a fun experience.
Yeah, it's a great time. My one downside is that during rehearsals, there are these elderly people, mostly elderly people, who think that they know better than the director. So they're like, Mr. Dan, or just Dan at measure 8 with the whole thing. And I just, to be like, y'all, he has a master's degree. He is trained for this. He's done this for 30 years. He's been at this church since day
Yeah.
one. Shut up. I don't say it out loud, but that's what I'm mentally communicating because
Yeah.
I was in choirs all throughout middle and high school. Like, your opinion does not matter in a choir. It's the director's way or the
Yeah.
highway. Like,
And
it's
he's
not,
the leader. He's the
yeah,
leader.
I remember for all state, I was actually a part of my all state choir one year. I was horribly sick during the time, which will
Oh.
probably never fly today for COVID related reasons. But I had a high fever and I was already there anyway with my dad. And my dad was like, "We can go if you want to." But I was like, "I think I can still do it." And I surprisingly carried through with no problem. But at the same time, it was like, I had this fever and it was just crazy. But we were doing this I think it was a West African song, and as like it was called Janga Imani Yakondugu, and how because we had a African American man doing it that year. His name is Rollo Dilworth. Very nice guy. And it was like, you're supposed to pronounce it like this. And I'm like, okay, I will pronounce it like this. So it was like, are we pronouncing it Jenga or Jenga? It's like, no, this is not the board game. Stop. We're not pulling bricks out from and trying to knock the tower down.
Right.
It's
That's
Jenga.
funny. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. I would like the hard part here in Utah is that everything like that is so competitive and it's so good. I mean, you went to a bunch of plays with me, I think three. It was so good, right? And so like that's amazing as an audience member to get to enjoy, but there's not a lot of avenues for people to just kind of try it out, like just to be an amateur. And that it's all so competitive things. So even like a choir stuff is very competitive.
Oh yeah, I was there for most of it.
Yeah.
So like there's not a dull moment.
Yeah. So All right. Well, what are we talking about? Why don't you tell everybody what we're talking about today?
Well, we're talking about Peacock, and this is a service because it has all the WWE stuff on there. They've been in the news recently, and I won't talk about it here, but they've just been in the news lately. But they got WWE stuff going on. They got a lot of new stuff on there, like added new stuff. They got some new series coming, if I've read the news right. So things are very active over there.
Yeah, I mean, it is a pretty good service. I actually get it for free with my Comcast, which is nice. But they have live TV, live events. I think the Super Bowl was on. Am I thinking that right? I don't know. They have live sports. Uh, I don't watch sports.
Yeah,
But
the rights are very tricky.
the Olympics were on Peacock, things like that. They so they have like live shows, but then they have their own series, they have original movies, they have catalog movies, just a lot going on at Peacock. And can you
Yes.
believe that this is our 14th episode of Peacock?
Wow, like every time we say like episodes like that, like 10, 12, 13, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like we've really been doing this for going on 3 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, because originally I thought it was just going to be something for a couple of weeks and it was just going to be about Disney Plus, well, for like 3 weeks. And,
And now we're on
and
to talking about like Pluto TV and Tubi.
yeah.
The I can't remember what they're called, but it was an acronym. The streaming the the fast services, the
Hmm.
free ad supported television.
Yeah, I forget what that's called, but yeah, those are some of the best ones. I mean, we've done Canopy, we've done Hoopla a lot of times, we've done Tubi, I think 3 times, and we just did our first Pluto. So yeah, now we're on our 14th Peacock, which is wild. But
Yeah.
why don't you start? Tell us your first pick.
Well, before I do that, I just wanted to say, in the words of that song from Dirty Dancing, I've had the time of my life and I owe it all to you.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. I really do. I I feel very humbled that anyone will give up their time, and
Yep.
especially because
No,
you do the editing. People might not know, but Ryan edits all the episodes. So
yeah, I
thank you.
do, but at the same time, I mean, you found me. It was your idea to do this, and I've been exposed to a lot of other things and to other people, so that wouldn't have been possible without you. So I owe
Mhm.
some of my success at the very least to you, and you're one of my favorite people in this space. You treated me so well in Utah when I was out there. So
Well,
you're just
it's a privilege.
you're,
I really do enjoy it, and I was when we did our favorite movies of the decade. Because I don't love Damien Giselle as much as other people do. I think I admire him. I think he's good, but it doesn't excite me like he does other people. And you had done Whiplash as your favorite, and I just thought you explained it so well, that and I think that I enjoy it. I just don't think it's like a masterpiece, but you explained it well, and so that very much impressed me.
Yeah, I cannot wait for the Babylon 4K to
Oh
finally
my
come out
gosh.
because I actually want I actually want to do a kind of Babylon explained video. Like not like something pretentious or anything. It's just something like a here's why I like it kind
Hmm.
of thing. So
Yeah.
I've been waiting and waiting and it's been taking forever and a freaking day to get
You
here.
should do it because I did not like that movie at all.
It's a lot. I will concede that it is quite a lot, but I think based on what Chazelle has done in his other work, I think it is some of his best work. But I will cross that bridge in that video when I finally
Okay.
get my hands on the
I
4K.
just feel I
Oh,
know we with this like tangent, but I just feel like the movie was very repetitive. It has, your party scene, your wild. People say, "Oh, it's a wild movie," and whatever. I'm like, yeah, for the first 10 minutes, and then it just repeats it over and over and over. I felt like each scene was kind of a repeat of the previous scene. So that was, I don't know. I just found the whole thing to be not for me.
No, 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 that I totally understand because it's very much like I've described it in the past as Singing in the Rain, but a lot more extreme. And with
Okay.
a certain scene in like the last part of the movie, it's very on the nose what they were doing there. But again,
Yeah, yeah.
when I get my hands on the 4K and watch it again, I definitely plan on doing a Babylon video essay. I'll come up with a snazzier title than that.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
That's in the pipeline. That is for sure.
Okay, good. All right, why don't you tell everybody your first pick?
So my first choice is one of the Fast and Furious movies, and with Fast 10 coming out and just being tired with the whole thing, I'm frequently reminded why this is subtly one of the best ones, and it's one of the simpler ones. It's Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. And by this point, Paul Walker wasn't involved, and in this one, Vin Diesel isn't even here. He has I want to say he has a cameo near the end, but
Yeah,
it's
very end.
yeah, he does. But Vin Diesel and Paul Walker were no longer involved, and this is the only one with neither of them. Like, not even Vin Diesel is in this one. And I still think it's one of the better ones. It's a basic story of this American teenager who gets into some trouble and is sent to Japan to live with his uncle to straighten him out. And he discovers Japanese street racing, and it takes him a while to get good at it, but then he does get good at it. There's a lot of this that is very much early to mid 2000s. Like Lil Bow Wow was a character in this, and where has he been lately? So there is that. But the car racing is so much fun in this. There's enough story to keep things moving along and keep things interesting. There's elements of Yakuza related stuff and the outcast proving himself and going up against the expert driver, and there's a lot of that. We meet Han for the first time, and there's the whole Justice for Han thing, which I won't talk about here because I'd be here all day. But we get introduced to Han here, and I call it one of the best in the series because where it has gotten to now, where they're basically all hitting Starmans from the Mario games, like nothing can affect them. How how they just run into like the things in parking structures where it's like the concrete and I think it's called beams. I'm not sure, but when they're driving in these garages and they run into the beams, it actually hurts, and you can actually see the cars, and like it's it's something that they would never do again because they have jumped the shark so many times that the shark is like, I've got better things to do. So it's definitely a throwback to a simpler time.
Yeah, it's true. I it, I didn't love this movie when I saw it. It was just very silly, but compared to the last two or three, it's definitely better than those, that's for sure. Better than the I didn't like the yeah, I didn't like 8 or 9. And this at least has some actual chases, races, as opposed to 8 and 9, which are just actually kind of boring, I think, because everything looks so fake. Everything looks like it's not dumb fun to me because it's a lot of people staring at screens. I mean, pretty much Charlize Theron's whole character is her staring at screens. And that's just not exciting. I mean, like they have that whole scene in, I think, 8 where all the cars are falling off of that building, but it's not interesting. It's just kind of like because it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like there's no stakes to it. I don't care about it. And so it's just kind of like, well, this is I'm watching like a CG highlight reel. And the only part of 8 that I enjoyed was Jason Statham with that baby. And that was hilarious and so good. But I guess it has been 3 because there was the spin-off, Hobbs and Shaw. which
That is
was
true.
completely ridiculous.
And
Um,
and what makes it even worse with this Fast 10, when I saw the trailer, I was just like, Jason Momoa, number one, what are you doing here? And number two, they're trying to tie him into Reyes, the villain from Fast Five,
mhm.
with like a distant cousin or something. And I was just sitting there
Yeah.
like, and you are married to who? Like, where were you in five? Like
Yeah,
now,
and
if Momoa had maybe a bit part in five and they played into that, okay, fine, whatever. But at the same time, he's just like he's nowhere to be seen in five, and all of a sudden we're supposed to buy him as a family member. It makes no sense. It really
yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah, and I think in this new one, I think they're gonna surprise, like, quote unquote, surprise and bring back Gal Gadot
I mean, they brought back Han, so they might as well at
and
this
did
point.
nothing with him. It was like the most blah bring back. Like, I don't know. I just really, this franchise has lost me. And so now one that originally I panned and I didn't like does seem much better than any of those. So it's, as we talked about in a previous video that we just did, it all depends on what you're comparing it to.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like people kind of crapped on Too Fast, Too Furious. That movie's not the best, but it's so much fun, especially considering Paul Walker and Tyrese when they're on screen together. They're so much
Hmm.
fun together. I mean, Tyrese especially, he is a lot of fun. But again, I think we could.
Better than, yeah, 8, 9, and
That's sure.
probably 10.
We can talk about those movies all day long, but we'd be here all day.
Yeah, but
So,
at
but
least this has some good chases and races.
yes,
So, all right. Well, my first one is because people might not know, but there is an agreement between Peacock and Hallmark now. So there's a whole Hallmark section full of Hallmark movies. Plus, you can watch any new movie on Hallmark on Peacock for 72 hours after it airs. So, like right now, you can watch Love in the Maldives, which was the weekend movie, for 72 hours. And you can watch The Way Home, which is a great show, and Ride and other shows. So it's pretty cool. And my first pick is one of those Hallmark movies. It's called Advice to Love By, and it's basically kind of similar to 10 things, not 10 Things I Hate About You. It's kind of similar to How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, where you have in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, you have a columnist who's, trying to write this column about how to lose a guy in 10 days. And things get complicated when she starts to fall for the guy. That's that plot. But this is kind of similar where it's a advice columnist, love advice columnist that kind of goes undercover with this guy and trying to test her rules of love with this guy. And it turns out he's also got his own rules. And I don't know, it was very charming, very well done. I love Brooks Darnell. He is so handsome and very charming. And Aaron Westbrook is a good co-lead with him. And this one, I think, kind of even the world of Hallmark sort of was under the radar. People didn't kind of got lost in the shuffle. But I think it's a good one. I really enjoyed it.
I love the title of this, Advice to Love By,
Yeah, it's a good title.
as opposed to Advice to Live By. I like
Right.
that.
Yeah. It's true. It's a good title. And it just does what you want in a Hallmark movie. Got witty banter. You've got two very attractive leads that have good chemistry. And so what more could you ask for in a Hallmark movie?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's my first pick. What do you have next?
So my next choice is a film from 1995, and this is going to be a little one. This is like putting this in hidden is a bit much, but it's a movie that I've had a weird kind of love for ever since I first saw it. It's one of those movies that it, it's it's hard to describe. It's Waterworld, the Kevin Costner movie. Now, I know some of you are going to be like, that Waterworld? Yes. I understand that the movie's not great, and when it bombed, it very much deserved. But I think over the past number of years, especially with like other sci-fi movies that I've seen, it's not great, but it's at least fun. And I like Kevin Costner in it, and I like the fact that they actually shot it in Hawaii and they built actual sets using all the steel that Hawaii had available, true story, to build some of the sets. And I like over the top Dennis Hopper with the eye patch and using like the non-union legally distinct spam to feed his soldiers, and they get paid in cigarettes, and they have this massive oil tanker, and they worship Captain Joseph Hazelwood, the guy from the Exxon Valdez. I don't know. It's a fun movie to me. I like the imagination. I like the creativity. It's actually got some pretty tense moments when when Kevin Costner's character discover and is trying to make a deal with this very weird guy who turns out to be kind of seedy in the wrong way, and he takes him out. It's very satisfying. And when he finally takes out a lot of the goons, it's a lot of fun. And a lot of these scenes look like they were actually shot on location. So, I mean, again, the movie's not great, but it's a big guilty pleasure of mine. They put
Mm.
tons of effort into this. It really, that's why I can't truly hate Tenet. I mean, it's Christopher Nolan's worst movie by a country mile, but there was so much effort put forth into it. But I'm like, yeah, he tried. And so
Oh.
that's my defense for Waterworld. They tried. They really did try.
Why do you have to bring up Tenet? Oh,
I know.
I
I know. I'm really trying my
I
hardest
can't
here.
stand that. I would way rather watch Waterworld than watch Tenet. At least
I'm
I
the
can understand what the characters are saying in
I'm the
Waterworld.
protagonist, Rachel.
Ugh. Oh my gosh. Gag. Ugh. So Waterworld. So I have to say, I saw Waterworld in New Jersey when my family was on a trip to the ocean when I was 14, and I hated it. I thought it was so boring, but I have not seen it since. I've never had the like I'm not that big of a fantasy person. So a lot of times when people are just like in love with world building and lore, that doesn't do much for me. And so that's just my kind of like weakness as a human. Like I'm like, let's go to the story. I don't really care about this world. But I mean, there was an impressive spectacle and they spent a ton of money on it. It was, I think, the most expensive movie of its kind at that time or something like that. But I do vividly remember seeing it in New Jersey and just being like, this is really boring.
Yeah, it
But I
was.
should give it another try because I mean, I didn't have the best taste when I was 14. So,
I mean, there's enough seemingly respect from it to get now an Arrow video release from it, a 4K of it that came out fairly recently.
oh, yeah.
So so there is like some respect for it.
Yeah.
It's one of those that at the time was like just completely panned. But I've
Hmm.
seen worse movies that the over the past couple of years than
Yeah.
Waterworld. So that's my defense. And I my defense is they actually really tried their hardest to create something creative. It's directed by Kevin Reynolds, who a couple of years prior had directed the second highest grossing film of that year, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. So this was by no
That's
means.
another movie I don't like much as most people do. I just find some of the plot elements are really dark for a like family film. It's like rape and other stuff, and the sheriff is so unpleasant. And I don't know, I just don't think it's as fun as it should be. I
Yeah,
don't I don't love I don't love that movie.
I could definitely see that, but again, keep in mind I'm not bringing it up in terms of quality, in terms of like the dude is talented enough to make it
Yeah.
the the second grossing highest grossing film of that year.
Yeah.
So at
Oh
least
yeah,
give
I
him
see what you're
that.
saying. I just people bring it up as like this great family film and I'm like, really? There's like a lot of stuff I wouldn't want my family to watch in that one, but that's just me. But yeah, I mean, he had what Kevin Costner basically had a license to do almost anything that he wanted after Dances with Wolves. And he made Waterworld, and people put up with that. And then when The Postman came out, that was the breaking point.
I've
They were
never
like, no more.
I've never seen The Postman, but I love Gene Siskel's quote in like the review where he called the movie Dances with Myself.
Yeah,
Like
it's
he's a
accurate.
legend for that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Well, my next pick is a fun movie that's I would say underrated because people know the remake or the American version. They don't know the British version of Fever Pitch. This came out in 1997. I love the American version, and I also love this version. Of course, the American version, you have Jimmy Fallon obsessed with baseball, and that version is really special because the Red Sox had not won for like 40 years, and the year that they're filming the movie they win. So they literally changed the entire plot around that, and they have all the filming that they did while it was all happening. So that makes it, I think, extra special. And I think that's a really good movie. But this movie is also really fun. But instead of being obsessed with baseball, you have Colin Firth, who's obsessed with soccer and a soccer team. And this all based on Nick Hornby's novel. And I love Nick Hornby. I think he is such a great writer. So funny. He also did About a Boy. So if people have seen that, that's his writing. And it's just funny and sweet and has something to say about work and obsession and modern life. Even though it's 1997, this one is underrated. People should see it. It's if you liked the American one, then you'll like this. I can't imagine someone not liking this. They like the American.
Yeah, I was going to say when I saw that in your recommends, I'm like, the Fallon movie? And it turns out, no, this is the 97 version.
Yeah, yeah, it's really good.
I had no idea Colin Firth was the lead.
Yep, yeah,
I guess this
he's
was one of
charming.
those, I guess this was one of those before he was famous kind of things, right?
Well, yeah, he'd done Darcy in 95. So that was kind of his breakout. And then this in 97. So what do you have next?
So my next choice is a movie from 2013, kind of sticking to ones where at the time it was kind of like, whatever. But considering who stars in it and who directs it, I think the movie has gotten better the more I have personally thought about it. The movie's called Oblivion. It's directed by Joseph Kosinski, who directed a little movie called Top Gun Maverick. It
Mm-hmm.
did okay. And it starred Tom Cruise. We all know who he is. And basically, the movie tells a story about how it's in the far future. Earth was invaded by aliens. We won. However, Earth is pretty much desiccated beyond all living things. And so humans have been completely moved off the Earth. And really, one of the only people left is Tom Cruise's character, who works for the company that's moving all the people off. And he has to deal with this what he thinks is an alien race. It turns out to be something completely different. And so I've been a fan of Joseph Kosinski for a while now. He directed Tron Legacy, which I love. It's not perfect, but I love the visual style, and I love the Daft Punk score. I could talk about Tron Legacy for days. And when and I'm one of the kind of frequent Oblivion defenders because it's a story we've seen before. It's about the person who is on one mission, but then the mission completely changes when he learns of one big thing that completely changes his worldview. We've all seen that before. But I think what I love the most is the visual style because Joseph Kosinski makes most things look absolutely gorgeous, and that does not change here. From the ships he uses to just how he makes everything look. There's a scene in a devastated Yankee Stadium to where that looks gorgeous, and just the reveal. I had a feeling I knew that it was coming, but it's done pretty well. So it's cliche, but I think I can forgive it a little more. So it's certainly by no means Kaczynski's best film. That's still Top Gun Maverick, but I still think this one is pretty underrated. And Morgan Freeman's also in it.
Yeah, I mean, this is just not for me. it's just not my style. I just don't love sci-fi and slow sci-fi. Um, there's not a lot of like the story just wasn't very interesting to me. I when we did the best and worst of Tom Cruise, this was my worst. I don't know if you remember that, but but yeah, it's just it's just not my taste. Slow sci-fi.
No, no, that's fair, and we've well established that. I
Yeah.
but I, and like I said, definitely not Kaczynski's best movie, but I like how it looks. I like the story overall. I think this is one that definitely got swept under the rug.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where I definitely fell asleep in the theater. That's my weakness. Sometimes I fall asleep if I'm not engaged. I wasn't a critic then, so I didn't have to stay awake.
Oh,
But
fair enough.
yeah, so but I can understand it is a beautiful looking movie. So I can understand that. Well, my next pick is a mixed bag of a film, but I think it's worth watching. It's called The Adventures of Mark Twain, and this is stop motion is one of the like pioneering stop motion films, and it's done by Will Vinton, who is the owner of Leica before it was bought out from him. And so it was the predecessor of Leica. Uh, and this basically, it's kind of a steampunk version of Mark Twain. There's this ship in the sky, and he starts telling all the different stories, some of his different stories to the kids. And it's kind of all over the place. It's kind of scattered, uh, but I still think worth watching because of the animation and it's kind of one of those bucket list movies that you just say you have to check off your list as an animation fan, and you could do it on Peacock. And we covered it for obscure animation, me and Stanford. So you'll want to listen to that.
You know, just looking at some of the photos on IMDb, it definitely gives off a Leica before Leica was invented kind of look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's more of a claymation than Leica does, but yeah, definitely in some of the darker themes, and you can see that kind of going. And it's interesting if you watch the new movie Air, you can see Phil Knight before he became the man who ruined Will Vinton's life.
Yeah, but
By
hopefully by the time this airs, because how this week works with the new releases, it's odd. We're getting Super Mario Brothers and Air on Tuesday instead of Thursday.
oh yeah, okay.
And so I have Friday off from work, so I'm gonna see Super Mario Brothers Thursday night, and then or no wait, on Wednesday night, and then I'm gonna see Air Thursday night. And so
Hmm.
hopefully by the time this airs, I will have my review up on my channel. But I'm so looking forward to Air. It looks so much fun.
It's really good. It's really good. And you can see I'm going to see Super Mario's today.
I've heard
So,
surprisingly good things, so I'm hoping, like, I'm sick of people saying the video game movie curse, but
hmm.
I'm hoping because it looks awesome. Like, just the Illumination got the look of it down at the very least. So I hope it's good.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. What's your next pick?
So my next choice is a movie from, or not a movie, it's a TV show. And it's incredibly recent, so again, kind of pushing it, but I feel like no one is really talking about this show. And I feel like this is one of those shows that I watch because it's like my parents are watching it, so they've turned me onto it. It's the newest version of Night Court, and it's a remake of the older show on NBC. This one stars Melissa Rauch, who was Bernadette from The Big Bang Theory. You actually hear her in her normal voice, and it throws me off so much because I've literally known her for a decade as Bernadette with the "I'm Bernadette," you know, the very high pitched voice. Like
Yeah.
Howard makes fun of it in some episodes, and to counter, you're like, I don't sound like that. Like it's funnier when they do it,
Yeah.
but hearing her in her normal voice here is like this cannot be the same person, and sure enough, it is. And it's very much a sitcom feeling of this judge has to hear these very out there cases, but it's fun. I really like the dynamics between her, the bailiff, one of the lawyers, or both of the lawyers. I like how it feels. It's one of those like comfort shows, I think, for best to use it best.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it from a bunch of different people, that it's pretty funny and well written. And I'm so behind on television. I haven't even finished the All Creatures Great and Small season 3, which I love that show. I haven't started Ted Lasso. I like there's so many shows that I am behind on. So I don't know
So
if I'll
many
ever
hours in
catch
a
up.
day, am I right?
Yeah. I feel like I need to schedule in. That's part of the reason why I'm covering Schmigadoon on the podcast. Because like if I'm not covering it, then I, I have a hard time fitting it in. But I have heard good things about the show. I heard it's funny.
Yes, yes, it is. And like I
Mhm.
said, if you do watch it and you're a Big Bang Theory fan, get ready for a massive shock to hear Melissa Rauch talk in a normal voice.
Yeah. Well, I think she's also, if I'm not mistaken, I think she's the voice of Harley Quinn
I believe that
on
is
some of the
true,
DC.
yes.
Yeah. 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 I think I've heard her there too. But my next pick is the Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. And this is a featurette, I guess you'd say. It's 53 minutes special that Jim Henson did. I have a review of it from Up at May if people want to check it out. It's charming. It's pretty simple. It's these otters, including Emmett Otter, that enter this talent competition. And so almost all the movie is just like them singing really catchy, fun songs. It's barely a Christmas movie. It's almost all the songs aren't even Christmas songs. It's but they probably aired it during Christmas. So, and I think they maybe have one Christmas song or not many. But the songs are super catchy, really fun, bluesgrass kind of songs, and it's just cute. It's a cute little Muppet movie that people should see. Underrated.
Yeah, it's nice to see Frank Oz in anything, and just
Yeah.
judging from the poster that's on IMDb, I love how beneath it is with special appearance by Kermit the Frog. Is like
Yes.
they
What?
definitely know who the face of the brand is.
Yeah, because he just basically introduces it, the short. And I think he's in the beginning and then a little bit in the end. And yeah, it's just basically an excuse to watch some fun songs. It's like a bunch of cute little music videos.
Oh, fair enough.
So yeah, it's fun. So people should check out my review for Muppet May, and we have Muppet May coming up.
Looking
So
forward to that.
yeah. What do you have next?
So my last choice is a documentary that came out late last year. It's called Becoming Ric Flair. Now this is a wrestling documentary, and with the Iron Claw coming out hopefully later on this year, like the Von Erich family is one that I'd love to see a movie about. Another wrestler I'd love to see a movie about is Ric Flair because his story is incredible. He's a 16-time world champion. He's like just done it all. Like he's one of the best to ever do it. But he was like just his story outside of the ring is just absolutely crazy. When he was born, he was not his parents basically gave him up for adoption almost immediately. And so a doctor in Minnesota basically adopted him. So he's never known his real family. And they actually mentioned in this documentary that his real life brother reached out to him and they wanted to meet, and he said no because he was always a fleer and that's all that he ever knew. So it's very complex. That's what I can basically say. So crazy story. In the mid 70s, 1975, he survived a plane crash that ruptured his C4 and 5 vertebrae. It was advised that he never wrestle again. He was back wrestling in about 6 months, and he just had his last match in the summer of last year. So he just farted in the general direction of the doctor's opinion. And this documentary goes into a little bit on like how he was, his legendary drinking stories of how he could drink like 20 beers in a night and like various mixed drinks and things like that. It's not an especially happy story because he actually had a son who passed away via suicide in Japan in 2012, so they touch on that. It's very sad. And he's been married a bunch of times. Just it's so like I said, it's not the best story, but it captures like it gives you a bit of a if you're not into wrestling and you want to maybe know about this person, this is one of the best ones to do it. And that and his 30 for 30. Those that one too.
Mm. Oh, I love 30 for 30s. Those are so good.
Yeah,
Yeah, this looks like a big personality.
yeah. The 30 for 31 is leans more into the darker stuff, and this is a little more rosy, but I still
Okay.
recommend it regardless.
Yeah. Cool. Good. All right. Well, my last recommendation is also in the Hallmark section. It's called Love to the Rescue. This is one of my favorite Hallmark movies that we've covered non-Christmas. I love the writer, Sarah Montana. She is so talented. And Michael Rady and Nikki DeLoach have great chemistry. They did another film together called Two Turtle Doves, which I also love. That's a Christmas movie. This is a very sweet movie about this. There you have a widower and you have a fairly recent divorcee that meet because both of their children find this dog at a rescue event, and they both want the dog, and so they decide to share ownership of the dog for a trial run and then decide who will get the dog at the end, which is probably a terrible idea, but it's a cute start for a romantic comedy. So they end up spending all this time together, and the kids become really good friends, and they're also planning this like carnival. And the script is just good. It's a good script. The banter is really good. The chemistry is really good. And this movie means something to me because it came out the weekend that I had the big blowback for the Shazam review. And I really needed a Hallmark movie that weekend. I needed something, comforting and funny and sweet. And so this really, I was just grateful that it was a good one that weekend because I needed it. And I always have a special place in my heart for it because of that film. And Michael Rady has a great track record. He picks great projects. Almost all of his Hallmark movies have been good. So,
Any
and Nikki
relation
DeLoach
any relation to Hannah Montana?
with what do you
Sarah
mean?
Montana. It was
Oh, yeah. I don't think so.
trying to be witty.
Right. Yeah. But Sarah Montana, one of my favorite interviews was interviewing her because she's had horrible tragedy in her life. And she has a very inspiring TED talk about forgiveness that I highly recommend. And then I got to talk to her about it, and she's just great. So anyway, it's a very charming little movie.
Uh,
So
I lost my train of thought for the first time today. Your favorite interview, that was Nikki DeLoach, right?
well, no, so I got to interview Sarah Montana. Well, I don't know what my favorite interview is, but I got to interview Sarah Montana about her TED talk and about the movies and what had happened in her life. And it was just one of the more like serious, heartfelt interviews I've ever done. And she's just a really tremendous person.
Is that
So
I'd like to see that interview.
yeah, I'll put a link in I'll send you the link. But
Okay.
I think it was moving her mother and brother were murdered in a horrible tragedy, and her TED talk is all about how she was able to finally come to a place where she could forgive
Wow.
the person, even he's in prison obviously and everything, but it's a very moving story, and I was just honored to like most of my interviews are fluffy and fun, and that was one that got a little bit more serious and a little bit more about what matters in life, and she's just her TED Talk is great. It's very inspiring. So
I'll have to hunt that down.
yeah, yeah, Sarah Montana TED Talk, if you look it up, it's all about forgiveness. And but this movie is just all about this these two people sharing this dog, and it's really cute. And I was just grateful that it came to me in a hard time when I was struggling. So
Yeah, so I'll definitely check that out.
mhm. So there we go. We did it. We talked about all the Peacock movies and shows. So let us know if you're listening what you have been watching on Peacock. We would love to hear your thoughts and in the comment section or on Twitter. And Ryan, where can people find you?
They can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and my YouTube channel at RyanCam20. I want to thank Rachel in advance for joining me on my channel. That video will be dropping this coming Sunday, Easter Sunday. We'll be talking about Joseph King of Dreams, continuing my tradition on my channel of reviewing something faith-based on Easter Sunday. So do look forward to that. And like I said, because of how weird the release schedule is going to be, I'll be having my reviews for Super Mario Brothers and Air not on a normal day that I do it, but they will be up earlier than usual. And then Life in the Movies podcast will be on Wednesday. I'll be talking with Jacob about non-traditional Easter movies, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that sounds good. Y'all should subscribe. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following the Hallmarkies podcast. We have all those interviews and other good content going up over there. So I'm really proud of it. So check that out and check out the Patreon. I think you get the biggest bang for your buck of any Patreon that I know, where you get to interact with stars. You get to have exclusive reviews every week. So please check out the Patreon and then the merch store. I would really appreciate it. We have hashtag animation junkie shirts over there. So take a look at that. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.